We do know that the car that had plunged into the Indian Ocean had been spotted. We are yet to get a full confirmation whether it has been retrieved from the Indian Ocean. This is the much you can report as of now. Well, in case you're just joining us, this is Abi Agina. I'll be walking you through this particular coverage for the next 1 hour. We are currently giving you live pictures from Likoni channel where the recovery mission is underway. As you can see on the screens, we have the various teams from the multi-agencies that includes the Kenya Navy, assisted by the Kenya Red Cross, as well as the various institutions that have been behind this retrieval mission that is, we understand, is at an advanced stage as of now. We've been able to spot the Kenya Red Cross team that is on standby there. We did see 2 stretchers being brought on board. And of course, this perhaps giving a sign that the retrieval exercise could be nearing a conclusion. Earlier on, we did see the county governor, that is Ali Hassan Joho, who was accompanied by other top leaders, including the top brass leaders from the Kenya Navy. Well, those are live pictures as you get to see there on the screens. We are yet to get any surety whether the bodies have been retrieved or the car has been retrieved from this particular Likoni Ferry tragedy. And of course, the rains have intensified as well. As you can see, we do know that the mission might be coming to a conclusion perhaps today, going by the projections by the government spokesman, that is Colonel retired Cyrus Oguna, who did address members of the press. And the mission has been underway for the last 13 days, where we did lose 2 passengers who are aboard the Likoni ferry. That was a mother and her daughter. Well, right now we are seeing a bit of movements there from the various teams on ground, and this comes even as a lot of speculation whether they'll be able to retrieve the car today or not. It will be a daunting, it has actually been a daunting task. Security presence very elaborate, as you can see there, the deployment by the police as well as the Kenya Navy services. We do understand the area right now is under very high security, even as the retrieval exercise continues. Well, this is the latest we can report, that the retrieval exercise is ongoing, and any moment from now we shall be able to get a clear picture as to what is the state of affairs. But in case we are unable to, we are unable to confirm whether or not they've been able to retrieve the car, we do know that special cranes are going to be used in this particular exercise. The special cranes will be able to go to the bottom of the sea. This is about 59 meters deep, which was what was reported, that the car had sunk 59 meters deep. And right now we do know that the various agencies are working around the clock to make sure that this exercise is concluded, and even the family members are also on standby, just waiting to get the latest in terms of where are the bodies of their loved ones. Well, it is a very tense moment when you look at this particular operation. Various teams are trying to comb through the waters. Of course, we do know that the car had been identified, and as we speak right now, we can clearly see that the rains perhaps might have an impact in terms of the mission, but they're still weathering the showers down there in Likoni. And as of now, we do know that the Likoni ferry, which normally applies that channel, has been suspended, even as they try to finalize this particular exercise. Our reporter on the ground, Tobias Chanji, is also following these developments very keenly, and he'll be giving us more details as to what exactly could be happening. We do know that very high-level government officers are on ground, and they will be, of course, addressing members of the press in relation to what do they know so far. And of course, it will be a major announcement coming up any time from now. And we can see there, that is Colonel Retired Sarah Suguna, just consulting with some of the various actors who are on ground. And of course, the government spokesman has camped in Mombasa for the last close to 6 days. And he is a former military man who has also some very great depth when it comes to matters to do with, of course, retrieval and, of course, this mission. What you see there is the special crane that we have been talking about. And it seems like they are setting it up, getting ready for the final exercise, which will entail the retrieval of the car. And it will be very critical to know whether the bodies are inside the car or not, in terms of looking at that particular channel, which the government spokesman did indicate that the channel is very active. So it has seen quite a number of items being pushed by the waters. Well, the teams, they are braving the storm, braving the weather, and the crane, as you see there on the screens, will be performing this particular exercise. The cranes have been sought from the Kenya Ports Authority, which is the government agency that handles all matters to do with the port management. Well, those are live pictures coming to you from Likoni, where the recovery mission is currently underway. You do know that this particular exercise has attracted a lot of attention, not only in Kenya, but we did get support from Sweden as well as South Africa. Well, this comes even as the various residents of Mombasa County are waiting with bated breath to see what will be happening at this particular hour. Well, our reporter, like I mentioned, Tobias Chanji, has been on this particular story for the last 13 days, giving us regular updates in relation to this particular incident. Well, so far we do know that efforts to pull out the car are at a very advanced stage, and any moment from now we shall be able to relay you with more information in regards to this particular recovery mission. Well, such an unfortunate incident where a mother and her daughter did plunge into the Indian Ocean. That was close to a week and a half. That happened on a Sunday in the Likoni Channel. It is still unclear what really led to this particular incident, whether it was a case of the Kenya Ferry services, which we did get reports that the ramp had no capacity to be lifted up. We also do know that the lady is reported to have engaged the reverse gear where the car plunged into the ocean. But all this remains speculative, but we are hoping to get more answers to this particular incident. Of course, reports still being put together by the various investigating agencies, and we shall definitely be giving you the latest updates. Well, some movement with the cranes there, perhaps an indication that there seems to be some activity. As you can see, they're live on your screen, and of course some movements there as well from the various staff from the various agencies. Well, this particular incident continues to be the talk of town, even as the security and the safety of passengers who come to use this ferry each and every day comes to question. The ferry services have been on the spot for inefficiencies, especially when it comes to how the ferry has been serviced. And of course, this remains, but more investigations into this particular matter. Well, perhaps we just want to get some closer perspectives. We can clearly see that the various actors on ground there just consulting and just trying to make final decisions as to the trajectory they might want to take when it comes to the retrieval. And we've seen this There's something we can see there on the screens which is in the blue tinted, and we don't know what is exactly in there, but we've been left in the dark a bit in terms of getting updates as to what perhaps is this, but so far we do not have a confirmation whether the car has been retrieved or the bodies have been retrieved. That is the latest we can report as of now. Let's just listen in on the latest updates from that end before we continue with our commentary.
Kuna video mimi nimetumia. Ya huko ndani. Kama picha ziko. Sasa kabisa. Ndio zilikuwa gari na hiyo bodi moja.
Sasa jamaa atajikuta nimefanya
Well, those are live pictures coming to us from Likoni, where the recovery mission is currently underway. We do know that the mission is at an advanced stage, and so far we do understand that according to the government that the bodies in the car have been confirmed, and of course this is one of the newest developments to this particular exercise that has been ongoing since on Sunday, actually for 13 days. If you're just joining us, my name is Abi Agina. I'll be covering for you the ongoing recovery exercise happening in Likoni. Right now, the pictures you can see on the screens, we do have the Kenya Navy teams that are on ground, just making sure that they carry on with this particular process. Well, this exercise is anticipated to come to a close today. And so far, we do know that none of the bodies have been actually retrieved, and we can report that the car the authorities had spotted the car, and right now they are working on the retrieval exercise. Helping me to just continue in this live broadcast, I'll be joined by Ken Gishinga, who is our resident analyst when it comes to matters to do with the economy. And Ken, such horrifying pictures especially for the family who have been waiting for close to a week and a half to have their loved ones retrieved. What do you make of this recovery mission? Are we likely to see it being concluded today, or it's something that it's neither here nor there?
Well, very difficult pictures to receive. It's heartbreaking to imagine what the family must be going through. And it's been 13 days of really heartbreaking experiences. We hope it can come to a conclusion today. Obviously, for the family, this will go on much longer. But I think it would bring a sense of closure if this can happen today. And I think by all indications, it's set to conclude today. So I think moving forward, I think a lot of focus will be on disaster management. Obviously, we've heard today about what happened with the airline on Mombasa Road.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot happening in the country pointing to how can we really think about disaster management moving forward.
Okay. And Ken, of course, for our viewers, in case you're just joining us, this is our continued live coverage of the Likoni Recovery exercise that is happening in Mombasa County. The pictures you can see on the screen there, we have currently a contingent of police officers just around that particular area. And what you also see there, we have some very interesting developments happening, where there is these special cranes which will be used for this particular recovery of the car. And so far we do know that none of the bodies has been retrieved, and we continue keeping an eye on this particular development. And one of the other aspects that will happen, that will symbolize that the exercise has come to a conclusion, is that the Kenya Navy, which is leading this exercise, will have a service where all the officers who have been involved in this exercise will converge and have a service. That will give us a sign that the exercise is about to be concluded. So far, we've been seeing various government officers, including the county governor of Mombasa, that is Ali Hassan Joho, who was on ground earlier today, who was also accompanied by the Abdul Swamad, who is also the local area member of parliament. And so far, we are yet to get any more information in relation to this particular exercise. We continue keeping an eye on this, and of course, we continue working with our analyst here, that is Ken Gishinga. And Ken, this exercise, 13 days, I can imagine the level of fatigue on some of these officers, but they still keep going. These are our gallant soldiers who are working towards ensuring that they are able to retrieve these bodies. But Ken, for this exercise to be concluded from your end, from what you know, what you've interacted with, what might be perhaps the likely state of affairs?
Well, I think, as you said, our gallant officers have really put in blood, sweat, and tears to see this mission come into conclusion. Obviously, it's not easy having to go 60 meters into the channel, a channel that is filled with debris, a channel that is dark, filled with sharks. I mean, there's a lot of barriers for them that they have to face, and we really have to really applaud them in terms of their patience, in terms of their fortitude. And I think moving forward, really, it would be, how can this unity of purpose always be maintained? How can there be a central command so that in future this can be done in 1 or 2 days? I think if we can get to that place, I think it would be a step forward.
Interesting, Ken. I do understand that the men you can see in the black uniforms, those are the Coast Guards, and of course the men in the sort of blue and brown uniform, those are the Kenyan Navy officers who continue this particular exercise. And of course they have police presence, the men and women in blue, who are keeping an eye just to make sure that the security at that particular place is top notch. But Ken, what are some of the key issues that we should be looking at, especially now that the families have been waiting, the residents are a bit feeling unsafe using this particular vessel which ferries them every day? I have been to Mombasa, I have used the Likoni Ferry, and there are actually 3 ferries which ply that particular channel each and every day, carrying hundreds and to some extent thousands of people per day, and as well as cars. We've not seen any major shifts, especially with the Kenya Ferry service, when it comes to them stepping up and ensuring that safety is at the forefront.
You're absolutely right, Abby. I think when this process is concluded, the first focus will go to the Kenya Ferry services, really looking at, first of all, the budgeting. Do they have enough funds to be able to run a proper, safe ferry? Because one of the local MPs had said there's been so many legislation bids to increase funding towards Kenya Ferry services, but that hasn't been coming through. Another talking point has been, should Kenya Ferry services be devolved to the county government of Mombasa? Would that give it better and closer management? Some people say yes, other people say no, other people say the county does not have the capacity. So I think there'll be a very sharp scrutiny on the place of Kenya Ferry services from a capacity perspective, from a security perspective, because it's the first body. All the other supporting bodies, whether it's the Coast Guard, Kenya Ports Authority, they come in much after. So I think for a lot of people, and given that tourism, we are going towards the high season in terms of tourism, a lot of people will be talking about their safety going into Mombasa. Another second thing will be about the bridge. You know, that's been another. Exactly.
Coming to that.
A lot of people have been talking about, is it time we get that bridge? We've had a lot of discussions, but is it time we finally put funding and get it through? Because other countries have done it. We are in an infrastructure development mode where we are building roads and highways, and bridges should be part of that conversation too.
Speaking about bridges, of course, the various situations that have been brought forth is that that is a very active channel, which also is like a gateway to the port, where the bigger vessels also pass through that. How will this be executed? There's talk of cable cars. Perhaps what needs to happen for us to once and for all sort out the Likoni missing link? Absolutely.
I think only logisticals and engineering expert would be able to speak to that. But as an economist, I would say we need a solution quickly. And the solution that has been put on the table is about 210 billion to put up the cable infrastructure. My assessment is there needs to be more consultation. But I think at the end of the day, Mombasa really, the county of Mombasa needs to be empowered more. I think there's a big argument that if these things were closer to the county of government of Mombasa and they had more capacity, things would move much faster, because there's a feeling that everything that is being done today has to be double-guessed, double-checked in Nairobi, and that creates a lag effect, which delays. So I think there'll be a key conversation on some of these things. Can they be devolved? If yes, let's do it. If no, let's understand what needs to be done. Yeah.
And Ken, looking at the Likoni Ferry tragedy, it is not the first time this has happened. We've seen a number of cases, including what happened in the 90s where we had the Mtongwe Ferry accident, which led to the loss of lives of over 200 souls and people who are aboard that particular vessel. And from a privatization point of view, many say that public managed or public run facilities do not get the best value for the people who use them. At the same time, there's the element that if we convert this to private hands, this will be a commercial venture. How do we strike a balance to ensure that, on one hand, as we consider moving it to public, from public to private, we don't see people being charged. At the moment, if you're using a car to cross the channel, it's 120 shillings. That's what I was charged about 3 weeks ago when I was using the Likoni Ferry. But what is your perspective on this?
No, as you said, when you reflect on the Mtongwe Ferry disaster, 272 lives were lost. I think that has to be the largest number of lives lost in a single incident. And that should have been a turning point for the country. So the fact that decades later, we are still sort of like trying to understand how to manage ferry incidents, I think it's an indictment on our part, generally as Kenyans. I think we have the short memory syndrome. Sometimes we forget too quickly. I think moving forward, as you say, we really have to look into what do other countries, what's the benchmark? You know, if you go to the Nordic countries, people crisscross from Sweden to Finland, Finland to Denmark. It's almost seamless. It's almost effortless. People go for picnics in one country and return in the other. And these are things that we can actually do. A lot of the people on the maritime organization at the Mombasa, many of them have been trained in Sweden at Malmo. So we have the expertise within our capabilities, but I think funding has been a major barrier. So I think moving forward, the question of privatization, should we privatize some of this? I agree with you. Sometimes when you privatize things, you make it out of the reach of the ordinary citizen, and you don't want to do that. I can't say there is a natural solution, but for me, there's something called the principle of subsidiarity. If something can be done by the lower body, let it be done. If that lower body is the county government, so be it. If it's the private sector that can do it in an efficient way, so be it, because there's nothing as expensive as losing lives. So, yeah.
And Ken, just for the sake of our viewers who are just joining us, we continue to cover the Likoni Recovery exercise that is underway in Mombasa County. And our teams are on the ground just to give us the latest updates in relation to this particular matter. We do know that today the teams that are on the ground are busy trying to pull out the car wreck that is believed to have been at about 59 meters into the ocean. And of course, the latest update that we're also receiving is that the two bodies have been spotted in the car. And this gives a sense of relief perhaps to the families who have been waiting with bated breath to see the remains of their loved ones and also get closure when it comes to this very horrifying incident. We want to